Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, Powering Ontario Through Electrification. I'm Michelle McCollum, Chair of Brampton Board of Trade, and also AVP Capital Development and Facilities at Sheridan, and I'm very pleased to be your MC for today. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and thanks to our guests for joining today's discussion. Mayor Patrick Brown will be joining us from the City of Brampton, Michelle Eaton from Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Keegan Tully from Ontario Power Generation, and unfortunately Minister Sarkaria won't be able to join us today, but does send his sincere apologies, and we'd have been here if it had been possible. I think there's a lot going on with the government today. I'm so looking forward to today's conversation as we speak about net zero and the corporate responsibility in working towards achieving a balance between carbon emissions produced and being removed from the atmosphere. I'm particularly excited about today's event because of the tie-in to the work that my colleagues and I lead at Sheridan over the last number of years, and guided by the ambitious goals of our Energy and Climate Master Plan, we've made great strides in a path towards a more sustainable future. We've installed a sector-leading district energy network, invested in making our new and existing infrastructure much more efficient and controllable, brought new technologies to our campus and indeed to the North American market, and lead energy planning initiatives in our communities, including the development of the City of Brampton's Community Energy and Emissions Reduction Plan. Most importantly, we've changed culture and mindsets, nurturing our campus environments and our communities beyond campus, supporting active transportation, partly in thanks to our partnership with the Region of Peel and Government of Canada with our bike hubs. We've created living labs which embed our work into student learning experiences. And to date, we have reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by over 54%. We've reduced overall waste by 23% and waste to landfill by 54%. And we're on track to achieving our ambitious goals as we move towards net zero. Before we get further into today's discussion, I wanted to share with you some of the work that the Brampton Board of Trade has been doing during this health and economic pandemic to support our businesses. We've been providing reliable information through the expert series, free webinars from various experts on topics important to our network community. We've been bringing business people together through development of increased connection opportunities, including bi-monthly network meetings and peer-to-peer networks. And those have been so important as we work to support each other. There's been a lot of effort lately in advocating for businesses to ensure business continuity. Specifically over the last 2 months, we've been working extremely hard on advocating the importance and acceleration of essential worker vaccinations. We're proud to have assisted Brampton Board of Trade members Maple Lodge Farms, Amazon and Maple Leaf Foods on the successful approval of their on-site workplace hotspot clinics to vaccinate their employees, and we continue to advocate for the promotion of second doses. So at this time, it's my pleasure to acknowledge the sponsor for today's event, our great friends at Ontario Chamber of Commerce, my apologies. Thank you so much for your ongoing support in making such important events happen. And on that note, it's my pleasure to welcome Michelle Eaton, who has a wonderful name, and she even spells it correctly. Michelle is Vice President Public Affairs of Ontario Chamber of Commerce. A communications and public affairs professional for close to 15 years, Michelle Eaton joined the OCC team in 2018 and is Vice President Public Affairs. Michelle brings her extensive leadership experience from both the public and private sectors. She has provided strategic direction, vision, and advice on communications and public affairs strategies to executives in multinational Fortune 500 companies, as well as senior federal cabinet ministers. Michelle is also the chair of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and on the board of the directors of Public Affairs Association of Canada. You are very busy, Michelle. Over to you.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Michelle. And I'm just so pleased to be here on behalf of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. I really want to thank the Brampton Board of Trade and OPG for putting together today's event. And Michelle, I really want to recognize the entire team at the Brampton Board of Trade for all the important work you have done and continue to do for the community and throughout this entire pandemic. As I always say, when businesses prosper, communities prosper. And during the pandemic, the support from the entire Ontario Chamber network has just been so critical. And they've, one of the most recent things I'd like to comment on is the Ontario Chamber Network supported the delivery of 2.4 million free rapid test kits in over 105 communities across the province through the COVID-19 Rapid Screening Initiative. That's in partnership with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the governments of Ontario and Canada. And this goal of this program is to help stop the spread and to identify those asymptomatic carriers to prevent them from spreading the virus in their communities. It's a very important part of keeping our communities healthy and getting our economy back moving. So just hats off to you and all the work that you do. And we're so proud of our member OPG for addressing the important issue of climate change and taking those necessary steps to create lasting changes that will make Ontario stronger. We've had the great pleasure of working with OPG in a variety of ways throughout the years, and we're just, we learn from you, and we're proud to partner with you on initiatives like this and others, such as our women's report that we launched last year, looking at how the pandemic impacted women. So really looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you to all those that have joined us today. Mayor Brown, looking forward to your comments, and Keegan, I'm very much looking forward to your presentation. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Michelle. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Patrick Brown. Patrick Brown was elected Mayor of Brampton in October 2018, and previously in May 2015, Patrick was elected leader of the Ontario PC Party. He became the Member of Provincial Parliament in September 2015 for the riding of Simcoe North. He served as leader of the official opposition and education critic. As Mayor of Brampton, he is focused on creating the economic climate for new investment and jobs. Mayor Brown continues to fight for more funding for better healthcare, transit, affordable housing and education. With a very fast-growing youth and senior population, Mayor Brown continues his work to expand the recreation facilities and programmes so Bramptonians remain active. A very warm welcome, Mayor Brown.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you to the Board of Trade for putting this gathering on with OPG, and excited to participate in it, because in Brampton, we are very aggressively pursuing our goals for energy reductions, and electrification is a key part of that. And we have a council that has set one of our goals to be a green city. It's in our DNA in Brampton. One of our most famous residents is former Premier Bill Davis, who, when he was Premier of Ontario, created the Ministry of the Environment. And so we like to say that caring about the environment is ingrained in our values in Brampton. And as we pursue this goal of energy reductions of 80% by 2050, we have made a deliberate approach at starting in the areas that we know we can make immediate change, tangible difference on emission reductions, and the electrification of our fleet is a great area for us to embark upon. 2 summers ago, we had the Minister of Environment at the time, Catherine McKenna, join us in Brampton to announce the first pilot project in Canada for an interoperable transit route that's electrified. And guess what? Just 3 weeks ago, those buses started rolling. So we have 2 routes that have been electrified, and our goal is to electrify our entire transit fleet. We're building a new transit terminal right now, which we hope will be electrified, that will really support a modern green transit system. And so what you're starting to see in Brampton is a big city convert into green transit. And it's not going to be limited to our transit system. We're looking at all aspects of municipal infrastructure. Just this week at our city council, we passed a motion to purchase the first electrified fire truck in Canada. So there are some exciting initiatives happening, and electrification makes it possible. You know, I think we have a responsibility to the next generation in our city, in our province, and our country, that we want to pass on the same beautiful environment. And that isn't possible if we don't take these transitions seriously. And I want to particularly reference Councillor Doug Willens, who represents the city of Brampton on the Global Covenant of Mayors Against Climate Change, and Councillor Juana Santos, who represents us on FCM as well, as part of their Green Initiative Task Force. And so I want to thank OPG for continuing to be a partner, and the Board of Trade, a partner for those that want to make this transition into a green economy and into green infrastructure and green transit. And when I heard of the topic on today's discussion, we jumped at the opportunity to participate because we believe we've got an important story to tell here in Brampton, that if we can change our transit system, there's no reason others can't as well. If we can't change, if we can change our fire fleet, then there's no reason you can't as well. And really, I think by seeing it put out there, it shows that in real life examples, there's no detriment to an electrified fleet. There's only advantages. There's advantages on a cost level. There's advantages on an emissions reductions level. And this could just be the tip of the iceberg. You know, if you look at waste management, you look at paramedics, you look at policing, I really think this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of the changing to that electrified fleet. And we should be first movers. I think in municipalities, when the public looks to us, are we going to be good examples of how we want everyone to transition? If we expect residents to start looking at electrified, greener options, we should be those good examples ourselves in government. So I'm looking forward to the question and answer period as we discuss these topics. I'm looking forward to that OPG presentation. And Michelle, thank you for having me on today as part of the City of Brampton.
Great, thanks so much, Mayor Brown, and certainly really exciting news. I didn't know that you could electrify fire trucks, so that is really exciting, and just congratulations with the continued work on transit and the bus fleet as well. So now it's time to introduce our final guest today. I'm delighted to introduce Keegan Tully, who is Director of Business Development at the Ontario Power Generation. Keegan is within the Electrification Development Group, and his focus is on developing new business opportunities related to electric vehicle charging and hydrogen. He has over 10 years of experience working in the electricity industry and an MBA from the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management. Welcome, Keegan, and I believe that you're going to share some slides with us.
Yes, thank you very much, Michelle. Let me just pull everything up. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, we can see that well, Keegan.
Perfect. And thanks so much for the introductions, and to the Board of Trade, Brampton Board of Trade, and Ontario Chamber of Commerce for having us. And it was great to hear the words from Mayor Brown about the leadership position that Brampton is taking on electrification. You know, the project, the demonstration project with your bus fleet at Brampton Transit is really a leadership, a leading project in the province and in the country. And I think Mayor Brown's right. It takes that type of leadership to set the example for others, so they know that it's totally possible to do this, and it can be advantageous for their organizations. So that was really great to hear. So for those that don't know us, we're Ontario Power Generation, and we're the largest clean power generator in Ontario. We're 100% owned by the province, and we're quite a large company with over 9,000 employees in the province. And we're really made up of a number of different companies and subsidiaries. You know, we have Ontario Power Generation, and within the corporate family, we have Laurentis, our nuclear services company, Atura Power that operates our gas plant, Eagle Creek that operates our hydroelectric stations in the US, and the IV Charging Network, which is a joint venture with Hydro One that operates our electric vehicle fast charging stations around the province. And this map just gives you a little bit of an overview of where we operate. So we have a really diverse mix of generation assets around the province, and then out into the United States. We generate from nuclear, solar, hydroelectric, natural gas, really all different types of assets. And, you know, I think one thing that not everybody knows about Ontario is that when we closed our coal-fired generation stations at OPG, prior to that, electricity is one of the highest emitting sectors in the province. And after coal closure back in 2014, electricity is now one of the cleanest sectors. It's responsible for very small portion of the emissions in the province. And so that really creates a great opportunity for electrification in Ontario. And we compare extremely favorably with electricity sector systems around the world, so much cleaner than the rest of Canada, the United States, and even places like Germany that people think about as leaders in renewable energy. Ontario's grid is much, much cleaner than there. And so that really spurred OPG to launch, you know, what we think is a very ambitious climate change plan. So we've committed to be a net zero company by 2040, and we want to be a catalyst for the economies where we operate to be net zero by 2050. And really, we see this opportunity because the grid is largely clean in Ontario. You know, there's a tremendous opportunity to use that clean electricity to clean up the other sectors in the economy and really drive the full economy to net zero using our clean electricity. And there's another number of key initiatives that underpin the climate change plan and how we think we're going to get to that net zero target. You know, we're developing small modular reactors. That's the future of nuclear power. And we really think that as we electrify, that can be the backbone of a clean electricity system. We're advancing electrification, something I'm going to talk more about today, to really drive the uptake of electricity in other sectors. We're exploring hydrogen to you know, some sectors of the economy are hard to electrify, and so the hydrogen presents opportunities there. Darlington nuclear refurbishment, really extending the life of one of our nuclear generators east of Toronto to provide clean power for a significant time in the future, and a number of additional initiatives there that really will drive the company and the province to net zero. And so more on electrification, and that's the area of the business that I work in. And we're really leading the charge here. Much like Brampton is taking the lead in transit, we're very active in this space as well. So we have a number of projects. We're working with the Toronto Transit Commission to help support them in electrifying their bus fleet. We have that IV Charging Network partnership with Hydro One. That's really a light duty vehicle, personal vehicle charging network that's spread across the province. And we are planning to build a station in Brampton later this year. And then we're also electrifying a couple of ferries out in Eastern Ontario that are converting from diesel to electric, and we'll be supporting the charging infrastructure there. And this is a trend, you know, something that Brampton is way out in front of here and showing a leadership position, but we really expect that EV growth is going to take off, you know, over the next few years. If we're going to get to those net zero targets, we need deep penetration of electric vehicle. It's almost the lowest hanging fruit in Ontario because our electricity system is so clean, and lots of analysts are suggesting that price parity is coming between internal combustion engine vehicles and electric vehicles, and so we expect sales to grow rapidly, and we need to get into that deep penetration of electric vehicles to meet those 2050 net zero goals. And so the IV charging network was really designed to help enable the confidence among drivers that they can buy electric and they'll find a place to charge. So it's a fast charging network with over 160 chargers spread across the province. We're planning to have about 60 sites by the end of this year, and really right across the province, way up in Northern Ontario, to help give drivers that confidence that wherever they have to go, there's going to be a charger, it's going to be reliable, and it's going to be working. And this is great for the economy in Ontario. It creates jobs and construction and engineering, and gets people to work, back to work coming out of the pandemic. And it also offers opportunities to lower electricity rates. Our system is poorly utilized at night, and electric vehicles really tend to charge overnight more often. And so that's the cleanest time to charge, and it's also a great opportunity to spread the fixed costs of the electricity system out over more consumption and reduced rates for all consumers. And to give you a sense of what the IV fast charging network looks like, this is where we're at right now. It's got a number of stations pretty focused on Northern Ontario right now, all the green pins, but we'll be building out in the GTA and across the 401 later this year with all the blue pins there. And what we're really looking to do with our IV charging network subsidiary is make it a really convenient experience for drivers. People need to have that confidence that the chargers are out there if they're going to switch to an electric vehicle, and that when they get there, the charger's going to work. So we're looking for sites that are very close to highways, that have good amenities, because it does take longer to charge an electric vehicle than to fill up with gas. We're looking for urban sites that are in high population centers, close to highways, and have good amenities. And then we're building 2 chargers minimum at every site, just in case one goes out of service. Fast charging is an essential piece of the electric vehicle ecosystem, and we want our drivers to be confident that something's going to be working when they show up, so they can fill up and be on their way. And so IV is mostly focused on light duty vehicles, which is about 97% of the vehicle fleet in Ontario. And the remaining 3% is medium and heavy duty vehicles. But those medium and heavy duty vehicles tend to be driven a lot more. They're also obviously heavier. And so they make a disproportionate amount of emissions. So over a third of the emissions from transportation come from those medium and heavy duty vehicles. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to electrify transit and commercial fleet vehicles that drive heavily. Electric vehicles provide the best cost savings when they're operated a lot, when they drive a lot, because they're significantly cheaper to operate. And so if you drive them a lot, you save a lot more. And so what we're doing at OPG is working with fleets to efficiently, reliably, and cost effectively provide charging infrastructure as they move to electrify, and really launching turnkey solutions to allow fleets to focus on core operations while we manage the complex electricity infrastructure. And I think this is particularly relevant, to Brampton. Brampton's at the center of the logistics industry. In Ontario, lots of vehicles, heavy and medium duty vehicles moving around for the businesses that are located here. And so there's a great opportunity to, have the businesses in Brampton lead and electrify and be at the front of this transition. And transit, Mayor Brown spoke about the leadership position that Brampton's taking. OPG is working with Toronto Transit Commission, who also are a leader in the transit electrification space. So we're going to be partnering with them via subsidiary and Toronto Hydro to electrify TTC's bus fleet, which is one of the largest in North America. And so we'll be designing, operating, and maintaining all of the charging infrastructure and associated electrical infrastructure to power TTC's bus fleets. It's a major project. It's 8 bus garages and at completion around 2,400 buses, and there'll be stationary battery storage and power generation at all of the sites to enable it. And finally, our Atura Power subsidiary is looking at clean hydrogen. We think this is another promising energy vector for electrification. And what we really look at here is producing hydrogen via electrolysis with clean electricity. And so some use cases like heavy duty trucking or cement and steel, they don't have as much opportunity for battery electric vehicles, but hydrogen could be a great path to clean up those sectors. And so we can still do that via electricity. And so Atura is really leading the charge to try to establish a viable and sustainable hydrogen economy in Ontario. And so with that, I've talked a lot, and I will hand it back to Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Keegan. That was a really great presentation, and it's clear you really well articulated the importance of electrification, particularly in transit and in fleet. And indeed, you mentioned the logistics industry in Brampton, and we know that in Brampton, about 59% of greenhouse gas emissions do come from transportation. So a great opportunity there. And also very interesting to hear about innovation around hydrogen as well. So with that, maybe I can open up to have a conversation with the panelists here. And starting back to you, Keegan, I'd be interested in hearing more about why the OPG has released a climate change plan and why now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michelle. And, I think I spoke a little bit about the coal phase out and that big action that OPG took to reduce emissions. And so after that, we were sort of asking ourselves, what's next? Like, what can we do next to fight climate change? And, we really wanted to set an ambitious goal. And so, we looked at ourselves, and we have this diverse mix of generating assets with solar and hydro and nuclear and gas. And we really thought that, producing clean power is an advantage for us and something that we're really good at. And, having this mission, this net zero by 2040 mission, it's great, from a corporate citizenship perspective. It's great for our engagement with our employees. It creates a unified mission amongst the employees that people have really bought into, and they're eager to come to work and motivated to deliver on that mission. So we really thought we released this late last year during the pandemic, and that this clean generation and clean electricity system is an advantage for Ontario. And being ambitious in the climate economy and leading in clean energy is a great way to kickstart economic growth and take a leadership position in Ontario around climate change. And we think that can lead to economic benefits as the world follows suit. And so we're very, very conscious that this has to be done in a mindful way of customers, for customers, and that we have to be conscious of rates. But we're really excited to keep moving and progressing on our initiatives here.
Thanks so much, Keegan. So Mayor Brown, I'll just maybe jump over to you for a second. So the city has the climate energy emissions plan that was approved by council last year, and again City Council also declared climate emergency last year. So we all have ambitious goals leading towards 2041, and clearly civic leadership is going to be a key important part to making that happen. So while we're seeing the climate change plan being released from OPG, I wondered if you could just share a little bit more about the goals of the city, and just touch a little bit more about how you see the future being, the future of Brampton and being helped by the decisions that council's making today.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And yeah, we're aggressively looking at meeting our climate change goals. I think too often you have climate change goals that are set, but the plan of how to achieve those goals are not as tangible. And I think we saw that with Canada and the Kyoto Accord, where we weren't meeting the commitments we made. And so I think right now there's a more deliberate attempt to make sure the commitments that are being made are honored. And so when we looked at our emissions in the city, we're really dissecting them to say, how is each sector going to contribute? How can we zero in? And right now we're looking at different proposals in each sector. And when it comes to transit, there's more ability for the municipality to affect it because we are owners of large transit fleets. When it comes to emissions from homes or industry, there is less ability to move that dial, although we are looking at potentially regionally based retrofit programs to complement the ones that exist with the government of Canada and the province of Ontario. But on transit, we're part of our 2040 vision is to not only transfer our fleet to an electrified green fleet, but we're looking at really creating alternatives to traditional car traffic. And so we have an ambitious plan when it comes to active transportation, creating more employment locally, is that you can be in one area, you can live, work, enjoy the same vicinity rather than being stuck in traffic each day, to try to have those all-encompassing neighborhoods. Additionally, I can say, rather than simply being reactive in terms of changing the infrastructure we use, there are many components of our climate mitigation plans where we're looking at our own initiatives. For example, Brampton is committed to planting 1 million trees. Additionally, in all new facilities that are being built, we're looking at the ability to have net zero facilities, everything from recreation to city management offices. If you look at the city hall, we have green roofs, and it's an ongoing conversation. As technology adapts, we're learning from each other. There's no monopoly on a good idea. Just this week, Michelle, we had a panel discussion that I attended with Councillor Doug Willens with representatives from the Netherlands who shared best practices in the Netherlands, and we shared best practices in Canada, so we could learn from each other on how municipalities are adapting to this new focus on the environment and energy efficient and climate mitigation. And so you could talk about this for an hour, and I know you've got your own time limitations, but it's very much, if I was to summarize it, we're trying to hold ourselves accountable. We're trying to hold ourselves accountable to the goals that we've set on the environment.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brown. And you nicely mentioned a number of the goals of the Community Energy Plan within there, so very nicely done. I'm going to jump back to Keegan again. Keegan, yeah, sorry.
Would you mind if I just jumped in here real quick?
Yeah, please go ahead, Michelle.
Awesome. I just want to, on the topic of climate change, is really important for the Ontario Chamber Network, and Ontario's greater business community. So we're going to be doing some policy work on this later this year, but we've long called on all levels of government to leverage private sector to address some of those challenges, environmental challenges, because that, when we tackle climate change together, we're supporting communities' resilience to climate shocks, and it helps, it helps make it has ricochet effects, and contributes to the jobs and growth of many regions and the vibrance and prosperity of communities. So there's a lot of great opportunities for private sector and governments to work together. So hoping to see more of that as we go forward as well after post-pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great point, Michelle. We appreciate the OCC's leadership as well. And I'm going to come back to you just in a little bit just to talk more about that. Keegan, so the OPG's climate change plan, thinking about where our businesses are at the moment, and this health and economic crisis that we've been going through, will the plan have any impact on customers who are already feeling so burdened?
Yeah, I think that's essential, and our plan, our climate change plan, commits to protecting electricity customers. We really think it's possible to reduce carbon emissions, and the focus is really on other sectors rather than the electricity sector. We've put in a lot of work to decarbonize electricity, and now we need to use that clean out electricity in other sectors to clean that up. And I think there is an opportunity to benefit electricity customers in Ontario, because there's a substantial amount of fixed assets that have been deployed to create the clean system that we have. And so if we can get consumption up, consumption of electricity, especially overnight, that really can benefit all customers by spreading the cost of all those investments we've made over more consumption. And so OPG is one of the lowest cost generators in the province. We're about third less than the average cost of other generators. And so we're proud of that, and proud to keep playing that role of moderating prices in the province. And I think it's really essential to get buy-in from, the broader economy. We need to be doing this cost effectively. So that's very important to OPG.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Keegan. And my next question, I'd like to open it up to the three of you. What are the potential challenges that our communities could face and our businesses in the transition to electrification?
So maybe I could jump in there. The first obvious choice is cost prohibitive initially. I think over the long term, it's a financial win for municipalities. But when you look at the initial price escalations, for example, taking a transit storage facility and electrifying it, as we're doing with our third transit facility right now, we're looking at a price escalation of about $150 million. But the way I would put it is, we're investing in the technology of the future. And if you invest in technology that is readily available today, you're really investing in technology that's 50 years old. And so when you're looking at the lifespan of that facility, which could be another 50 years, if you invest in yesterday's technology, boy, it's going to be antiquated, and you're not moving the yardstick forward. And so I think it takes the courage to understand that these are opportunities of the future, and we're going to be on the right side of history on energy efficiency and the environment. But the most obvious initial challenge is that cost, that price tag, which I think sometimes the price tag towards change makes people nervous. It's probably more convenient to just go along with the same old approach. But the same old approach is not about building a community for the future. Yeah, it's to be blunt, it's a mistake.
Thanks, Mayor Brown. Great points. Michelle, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I just think I think there's probably a change management component for uptake that will take time, and having availability versus supply would be something tricky to manage throughout the province. So, but no, we've changed and adapted to many things throughout the year. So I see more opportunities than hurdles with this.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And Keegan, this is your world right now. So Maybe you can enlighten us and tell us how to solve all of these challenges.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Mayor Brown. You know, the reality today is that electric vehicles are more expensive up front than internal combustion engine vehicles, but it's that long-term savings. You can really reduce the operating costs of these vehicles if you're bold enough to take the plunge and make the investment. And so I think there's opportunities for all levels of government to create incentives and help different organizations invest in these types of assets. I think another thing that I hear a lot is, can the electricity grid handle it? We're talking about electrifying a huge sector of the transportation sector. Can the electricity grid handle it? And I think Ontario's grid is well prepared. It's designed to meet peak demand on the hottest day of the year, and a lot of the time it's underutilized. And so it's really about being smart with when these vehicles are charging, trying to charge them overnight where possible, and then it can be really complementary, as I've been mentioning before. And so we really need to incentivize people to have good charging behavior. And we're going to have to invest in the electricity system as we get into sort of deep transition to electrification. And but you know what, I think those investments will be worth it, and they can be managed effectively if the assets are well utilized. And so it's a really great opportunity. Another thing I'd add is, a lot of at the individual business level, I think it's very new and different from what people are used to dealing with. They're used to dealing with buying diesel and gasoline. And so I think it can be overwhelming for a fleet manager to make the switch. And so it gets complex quickly, dealing with utilities and complex electrical infrastructure. And so, what I would really encourage people that are thinking about it is to reach out to experts, somebody like OPG that works in this space and, knows how to navigate it, and talk early, talk to your local utility, and really plan and get help so that you don't have to face those challenges alone.
Thanks, Keegan. And so a little bit of a technical question, yeah, and there's different views about the continued use of gas. How do you expect that the continued use of gas will impact your ambitious goal of net zero? And how do you kind of marry those two things together, continued gas generation with net zero?
Yeah, and at OPG, we're pretty fortunate. We have a mix of generating assets, and I think we really see gas as the enabler of the transition. It's essential in the electricity system to have reliability. When somebody goes to flick that light switch, they expect the power to come on, and so reliability is core to what we do. And so we really need gas to enable electrification and enable other renewable resources, because sometimes the wind doesn't blow and sometimes the sun doesn't shine, and at those times we need to use our gas assets to provide power to the system. And so it's really important for the transition, and we need to keep building things like small modular reactor, nuclear reactors, and other assets that are going to help, reduce the amount that we use gas. But gas is really essential to getting us to that clean future, and to enabling the use of electricity in these other sectors in a reliable way.
Yeah, I know at Sheridan we look at very efficient use of where we do have to use fossil fuels for reliability. It's really about ensuring that we use those fossil fuels as efficiently as possible, and we still see we're a ways away from being able to look at full electrification, although that's something longer term. A question for all of you. So we're here at Brampton Board of Trade, virtually here at Brampton Board of Trade. How can Brampton business communities get more involved? How do they start to think about a journey towards electrification and towards net zero? Obviously, we have a wide range of sectors. So how would we advise our businesses who are tuning in today, how they can start to explore these options more?
Well, yeah, maybe I'll jump in here and just say, jump at the opportunity. And I know some of these transitions at first it may seem intimidating because there may be a price tag to that transition. But I would say increasingly the market is responding to those that are on the right side of the environment. And if you are an early adopter, it will be less cost prohibitive than it could be down the road when you have to scurry to meet a new government regulation. And let me give you an example. Just recently, the federal government announced that they're going to phase out single-use plastics. I think the companies that had a plan, adapted, were in a much better position rather than now having to scurry last minute what to do about those products. And so I think increasingly governments are going to be looking at ways for Canada and Ontario to meet our climate change goals. No one wants to be in the position with egg on our face again of Canada not meeting its obligations. So I think it's fair to say, expect a more environmental regulation. And it's not an issue of a partisan divide anymore. And this is what I want to add to the context. Before, it used to be conservatives against a carbon tax and liberals for a carbon tax. And there were sort of two different perspectives on the environment. Increasingly, what we're seeing is the normalization of an opinion within the political climate that everyone has to take climate change seriously. Even the federal conservatives with the new leader, Aaron O'Toole, adopted carbon pricing as part of their platform. And so the notion that some of these environmental regulations are going to go to the wayside, I think are increasingly remote possibilities. If anything, I think you're going to see a consensus, expect more environmental obligations, and the sooner you adapt, the sooner you'll be able to integrate into what is going to be an economy that is integrated with environment.
And what kind of supports could we, are there supports that the city can help put in place for businesses to be able to encourage and support that thinking?
So the city is not able under the Municipal Act to provide any subsidies for-profit businesses. We are limited to working with not-for-profit organizations and government sectors, but there are some programs provincially and federally where there are opportunities. And even the region of Peel, we're looking at ways to have some partnerships with the provincial government that would be incentive-based. And so right now on the NRCan website, there's a list of federal programs. On the Ministry of the Environment website, there is provincial programs. And we'll see if at some point there'll be some regional support for waste management activities as well.
Thank you. Michelle, in terms of the business community and the chamber network, are there things that we can do together? Are there partnerships that we can forge to help businesses on this journey?
Yeah, for sure. I think, and just to go back to an earlier point that the mayor mentioned, when businesses are looking at something like this, you have to think about it. Climate change is so important for businesses, and the best example I use is if it impacts their bottom line. So if one business is beside another business and they have an oil spill or some kind of climate or environmental emergency, that will impact the bottom line of its neighboring business. So looking at something like this has to be looked at in the same context, that it's for the bottom line for your company and the better good of your community. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for partnerships at looking at sound public policy that's reasonable, that doesn't create additional red tape, but that can help create prosperous communities. And working with your chambers of commerce or boards of trade from across Ontario is a great way for organizations to do this, to get that word to Queen's Park and to the local municipalities and to the Fed. So, yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. And Keegan, I know that you did mention earlier about businesses engaging with OPG. Was there anything further you wanted to add on that subject?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, is to, consult with people that are working in this space. You don't have to deal with it alone. And I think the other thing I would just add is, like, look at the example of Brampton Transit. You can sort of sit there paralyzed, or you can just jump in and take on a smaller project and get your feet wet. And so I think that's a great way to start towards that transition, is just to bite off a smaller chunk and get moving.
Thanks, Keegan. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the future and about hydrogen, and how do you see the future with hydrogen, and how will that look in terms of electrification, hydrogen, and what will that mix potentially look like? What's your vision?
Yeah, I think, we need a lot of different solutions to meet net zero. Like, it's going to be really challenging to get there. And so we need a mix of solutions, just like we need a mix of different electricity generation assets. We're going to need a mix of solutions for other sectors. And, I think generally the light duty vehicle market is, it seems like it's coalescing around battery electric vehicles. They're pretty proven. They're selling well now today. And so I think that's going to be the solution. And then where, there's some more niche usage, so like heavy duty trucks, long haul trucks, where they have weight constraints or long distances, there might be opportunities for hydrogen there, or sectors that need liquid or gaseous fuels, like cement, steel, those types of industries. To get to net zero, they're probably going to need hydrogen. And so there's really opportunities for both, and it's just going to be in sort of slightly different use cases.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much. In our final few minutes, I just wanted to open up for any final comments. Maybe Mayor Brown, if there's anything that you've not had the opportunity to share so far, or thoughts on the conversation.
No, just to say that I think it was a really good conversation, and thank you to the Ontario Chambers of Commerce and the Brampton Board of Trade for always hosting these conversations on topics that are near and dear to our heart. And we look forward to being a good example in the city of Brampton as we transition to this greener economy. And if there are other boards of trade out there, chambers of commerce that have good ideas, because I'm sure this is being broadcast to the Ontario Chamber Network, know that we're all ears in Brampton for good ideas anywhere in Ontario. And I know we can all learn from each other. Great. Thanks so much, Mayor Brown. And Michelle?
Thank you again for hosting, and thank you to the cities and to OPG's and your leadership on climate change. It takes collaboration from all levels in public and private sector. So hats off to you all.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Keegan?
No, thank you very much for having me. And it was a great conversation. Thanks to Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Brampton Board of Trade, and to Mayor Brown for the great discussion. Okay, wonderful.
Well, I think together we can look forward to a very bright future. We're seeing tremendous leadership from the OPG, from Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber network, and the city. And I'm looking forward to seeing more electrified transit buses. That's so exciting. Electric fire trucks, which is absolutely awesome as well. And I think this needs to be the start of more conversations around commercial vehicles and fleet. And it sounds like as the exploration and advances around hydrogen, then that might make that even more of a reality. And just to go back to the point that, I think it was in 2018, 59% of the greenhouse gas emissions in Brampton came from transportation. We can really see the importance and the impact that electrification could make to our entire community. And that's, I think you made a point earlier as well, Keegan, that's not just about the environment. It's actually about economic and social well-being, and that trio. And so with that, I would like to sincerely thank Michelle and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Keegan and Ontario Power Generation, and Mayor Brown and the City of Brampton. Thank you all for your tremendous leadership. Thank you for your time today. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and most of all to you, thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out on Monday, I think at 5 o'clock, we have our Next Gen Network. So please check that out, and sign up. And thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks. Take care. See you soon.